Hi guys. So today we will begin a brand new module, and in Zern they will call it Mission 2. Okay, so we are just going to dive right in. It is probably, I think you should be watching this on Tuesday, September 15th, I believe. And we're just going to track right on through. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're just going to go ahead and watch Miss Walker's videos because she does a really good job with all that technology bringing in, and I can pause and add my own little spin on certain things as well. Okay, so give me a sec to share my screen. Here we go.
Hey boys and girls, it's Mrs. Walker. Today we're going to practice our fluency, and our learning goals for today are I can practice counting forwards and backward from 20 to 40, and I can practice counting 2 more.
All right, so fluency, just getting those math facts in your head really quick so that we can do those things in a flash without having to work so hard on our fingers. So we are going to practice counting by ones forwards and backwards between 20 and 40, okay? We're pretty good at that between 0 and 20, but we're going to practice it today between 20 and 40. And then also, instead of just counting on to the next number, we're going to count 2 more. That's called skip counting. Oftentimes kids at this age, they're pretty good at skip counting if you start at 0, but we do not always start at 0. I should still be able to skip count by 2s or 5s or 10s or whatever it is, even if I start at some random number like 13. What would that be if I were to count 2 more? Okay, so this is just practicing that skill where you're kind of used to doing it 2, 4, 6, 8. That's easy, but we want to start at any given number and still be able to do that skill. Here we go.
So let's jump in and get started. So we're going to do happy counting from 20 to 40. Well, how does that work? We're going to start by counting at 20. You're going to watch my hand as I give you directions as we count. So if I'm pointing up, that means we're counting up. If I hold my hand in a fist, that means we're going to stop and we're going to switch directions. And then I'll point down to tell you that we're counting down. Okay, so after we do this, you can also practice this with your learning guide. It's just a good way to be able to build your fluency with your counting.
We don't have
that will
a learning
help with your
guide,
addition
so
and
that's just
subtraction
something
as well.
she's adding.
So let's get started.
Watch her hand.
All right, let's start by counting by ones, and we're going to start at 20. Remember, this is counting up, this is stopping, and this is counting down. Okay, so here we go, friends. Let's start at 20. 20, 21, 22, 23.
Stop.
Now we're going to count down from 23. So 22, 21, 20.
Stop.
Stop. Now we're going to go up. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Stop. Going down.
Now let's go down. 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23. Stop.
Stop.
Now we're going to count up from 23. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34.
Stop.
Let's go down.
From 34.
33, 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27.
Stop.
Now let's count up. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. All right, great job, friends. That was an awesome job with happy counting. Remember, this is another strategy that you can practice with your learning guide. You can go ahead and practice and teach them how to do happy counting from 20 to 40. Okay, so remember, if you're pointing up, that means you're counting up. This means step. And then you're pointing down means you're counting down. So go ahead and give that a try with your learning guide. Okay. Let's jump into our next one that we're going to practice. We're going to practice counting 2 more. So every number that I say, you will say the number that is 2 more.
She's going to start with the easy ones.
So if I say 2, you would say 4 because 2 plus 2 more gives you 4. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. So remember, we have our plus 2 over here because that's 2 more. So 5 plus 2 is 7. Good job.
Make sure you have your number in your head before
6 plus
she
2
says it.
is
6, 7, 8.
8. 8 plus 2 is
10.
10. Good job. So what's 2 more than 9? So 9 plus 2 is 11. Sometimes it might help for you to kind of go like 9, 10, 11. Like you can bob your head 2 times and count.
That's just kind of what I was going to give you, that little trick. It's kind of like if you're going 2 more, we sometimes call it whisper count. So we say 9 and then you whisper 10, 11. Okay. Or you can do the little head bob that she was saying. So 9, 10, 11. That's if you're doing 2 more. If you were doing like 3 more, then you would have to whisper twice and then say the third number. Okay. So if we're doing 2 more, you say the second number. So whisper said, whisper said, whisper said. So if it were 11, you would go 12, 13. Okay. If it were 92, you would go 93, 94. Okay. So whisper said.
Count up, and that gives you your number. 18 plus 2. So count up 18 and go up 2 more.
19,
It's going to give you 19, 20. 38. Okay, so start at 38 and go up 2 more. So 38, 39, 40.
Use your head bob to help you too. 39, 40.
58 plus 2 gives you 58, 59, 60. Good job, friends. 78. What's 2 more? 78, 79, 80. Good job. 79 plus 2 more? Okay. 79 plus 2 more gives you 81. Good job. 19 plus 2 more is 21. 29 plus 2 more is 31.
See how we're not just going 2,
39
6, 8.
plus 2 more is 41. Good job practicing 2 more. Okay, so awesome job with your fluency practice today, friends. Please.
Okay, we're going to stop there for the fluency practice, and we're going to slide right on into our brand new module. Let me be able to pull it up. So this is grade 2, mission 2, lesson 1, concept development. That just means we're working today.
Hey boys and girls, it's Mrs. Walker. Today we're going to start our next module on measurement. I'm so excited. I love to measure things, so you're going to get different objects and be able to measure them. You're going to measure them with.
Did everybody hear what our new module is? Measurements. We're going to be measuring lots of stuff.
Rulers, with meter sticks. You're going to measure them with different units. So let's jump in and talk about what our learning goal is actually going to be for today's lesson. So for today, your learning goal says, I can use units to measure. What? You might be thinking, a unit? What's a unit? Well, today we're going to be using a centimeter cube. So make sure you find those in your math toolkit. A centimeter cube is.
Now, you don't have a math toolkit because you are doing this from home. So it's going to be super duper important that you are really watching these videos and looking to see what she's doing. When we come back to in-person school, we'll have kind of a quick review, even on things we've already done, so you can get your hands on those materials. You're going to use the centimeter cubes. You're going to use the rulers. You're going to use the meter sticks, all of the different things that she's going to talk about. You're going to have to watch it from home, unless you have some of that stuff at your home. I don't know. But once we come back, we'll kind of review that so you actually physically get your hands on that stuff and practice doing it on your own as well. But I think you'll really still get a lot out of just watching her do it as well, so that when we come back, we'll be able to zip through it because you'll already have all that knowledge in your head that you've learned on these videos, and with your Zern lessons, it's going to give you some practice there as well.
Is just called a unit because it's something that you can measure with. So a unit can be a pencil, like you can use the width of this tip of a pencil. It can also be the width of a phone. That could be a unit that you can measure with. So a unit is just something that's not a ruler or a meter stick.
So today it's measuring in what we call non-standard units. So they're not using like inches and centimeters and feet necessarily, but they might be measuring with other items that we don't commonly measure with. Like you can measure with paper clips. You could say, how many paper clips long is that pencil? You could measure with pencils. You could say, how many pencils long is your table? Okay, so you can measure with other things besides items whose job it is to measure. Okay, so that's called non-standard units of measurement.
Okay, so a unit is just something that's a little bit different, but is consistently the same size throughout the whole time that you're measuring. So today we're measuring with centimeter cubes.
Okay, now centimeter cubes are a standard unit of measurement. A centimeter cube is actually going to look exactly like your ones cubes from your base 10 blocks. That's exactly the same thing. I use them in place value activities, and I use those ones cubes in measurement activities because they are exactly 1 centimeter long. Just a little tip, a centimeter, if you hold up your pinky, a centimeter is about how far wide your pinky is. So not exactly, but it's a good estimate because my pinky is going to be a little bigger than your pinky because I'm bigger than you. But if you look at your pinky, we're talking centimeters. It's about that big. Okay, so if I were to measure with my pinkies, it's going to give me a good estimate of centimeters, okay? But she's actually going to show you centimeter cubes, which are just like those ones cubes that we use for place value stuff, and show you how we can measure with those.
So our first part of our lesson for today is I want to take a look at this pencil. Okay, pretty green colored pencil, right? So here's our centimeter cube. Okay, so you guys.
All right, a couple of things. I'm sure she's probably going to talk about it too, but I want to make sure that I, as your teacher, am talking about it as well. When we're measuring and we're using something like a centimeter cube, there's a few things that are very, very important to always remember. Do you notice how you see the end of the pencil right here? She has lined her centimeter cube up exactly right there. If you don't line up with what we call the end point, that's the math term that you need right there, the end point. If you don't line up with your end point, you're actually not going to get the right answer, okay? Another thing that we want to make sure is that when we put another centimeter cube up here, or if we were to mark and move forward, that's another strategy we'll teach you, it has to be right beside this centimeter cube. I can't leave any gaps. Gaps are space between those cubes, because otherwise I'm not really measuring that space and I'll get the wrong answer. So a couple of vocabulary words that she will, I'm sure, talk about, but that I will definitely be talking about is endpoint. That means you start at the end. So we measure from end point to end point. So you go all the way to the tip of this pencil. And then you also will hear me say no gaps. That just means make sure you're lining your cubes up, or whatever we're measuring with. You're lining it up so that there's no space between them so that we get a true measurement.
You guys have those in your math toolkit. Mine is going to be this size. Now, notice that when you guys are going to be measuring today, you're going to be measuring real objects. Mine are just going to be pictures on the screen. So if you were to pause this and take out centimeter cubes and hold them up to the screen, they're not going to be the same size. So this is not to scale of what your centimeter cubes are actually like. So
Pretty
just
close,
don't
but
be
it's not
thinking of
exact.
that in the back of your mind, that maybe if you were to pause it and stack up centimeter cubes on here, you might not get the exact same number that I do, just because it's a little bit different on the screen. Okay, so I have two questions for you.
I feel like trying that.
Can you
I have a
estimate the
centimeter
length
cube
of
here.
this pencil? So estimating is just meaning like your best guess. So I want you to look at this picture and look
It's
at that
pretty
1
close.
centimeter cube that's there.
About.
And I want you to think about how many centimeter cubes, or how many units, right? Same thing for this example, is the length of this pencil.
All right, so let's pause there. An estimate is your guess. It's not just a wild and crazy guess, though. It's an estimate or a guess based on information you know. So you know two things here. You know the length of that pencil. You can look and see how long it is. And you can kind of see how big that centimeter cube is. So taking those two pieces of information, you want to make an estimate, a really good guess about how many centimeter cubes it would take to get all the way to the end of that pencil, from endpoint to endpoint. Now, if I said something like 437, is that really a good estimate? No, based on the information I have about the length of the pencil and the size of that centimeter cube, I know that's more of a wild and crazy estimate. That's not a good guess, okay? So you want to make an estimate, which is a good guess based on what you know about what the length of this pencil is. So go ahead and put your estimate in your brain. So think about it.
Pencil.
Watch.
So that's just your best guess. Go ahead and just kind of think about it right now. I'm going to say maybe like 10. That's going to be my estimate of the length of this pencil.
Sounds like a reasonable estimate.
You have your estimate? Okay, let's see. So we're going to measure this pencil with the centimeter cubes because that's our unit of measure is a centimeter cube. Okay, so here's how you might want to maybe start measuring. You put 1, then you go 2. Just keep kind of putting them up there until you get...
Take a look. What do you think, or do you think she did that correctly? Or do we think she did that incorrectly? Right now, I want you to give me a thumbs up if you think, oh, she measured that, she did a great job. Or a thumbs down and you're like, Miss Walker, you did something wrong. All right, let's see who's right.
To the end, right? So when I look at this, I have a question. I say, what's wrong with the way I measured this pencil? You might be thinking, oh, well, there's nothing wrong. But there actually is something that's wrong with the way that I measured this pencil.
Let's pause and talk about what that may be. I talked to you about measuring from endpoint to endpoint. Take a look. Did she measure from endpoint to endpoint? Did she line up the centimeter cube here at the end? And did she line up the centimeter cube at the end of the other side? Yeah, she did. She measured endpoint to endpoint. So what in the world's the problem? Remember that other thing I told you about? No gaps. It's kind of like how I used to, I can't say it this year, but I used to when we were walking down the hallway, if someone is walking in front of you and then you're kind of being a slowpoke and you have a big gap in your line, and I might say, no gaps, that means I want you to get closer to the person in front of you, right? Not have that great big giant space. Now this year, as we walk down the hallway, we're actually going to be putting those big giant spaces between us because we're trying to stay 6 feet apart. So that's very different from how we normally do it. So normally I would say no gaps. And that's the same thing I'm going to tell Miss Walker here. Everyone ready? We're going to tell her 1, 2, 3. No gaps. All right, let's see how she can fix this.
If you look here at this pencil, see right here you have this space in between these 2 centimeter cubes, and there's a space here, and another space, and another space, and another space. Well, that's what's wrong with the way I measured this pencil. When you measure something, you have to have all of those units lined up right next to each other. They have to be touching. They're going to be like best friends. Okay?
She's going to need some
There's
more.
no spaces in between. They have to be right next to each other as you're measuring.
Now be careful. When we say right next to each other, we don't mean over top of each other either, okay? So we don't want any space, no gaps, but we also don't want them to be on top of each other either. So just touching, okay?
Something with different units. So remember, we need to begin measuring where the objects begins and stop measuring where they end. Okay, so those are called endpoints. So right here is the very end point, and then you also have another endpoint on this side. So the endpoint is just where the object starts and stops, and you need to measure from one endpoint to the other endpoint as you're doing your measurements. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2.
See how she's getting a very
notice how
different
if you want to
answer.
measure this, you would be taking out cubes and lining them up just like I am in this example.
All right, let's take a look. Has she lined it up endpoint to endpoint? Yes, she has. And sometimes in order to get to the endpoint, you have to have some of your cubes sticking off over here. That's when you're only using like maybe half the cube. But this pencil lines up perfectly with the endpoint there. And does she have no gaps? Excellent. I think she's done this the correct way now. Do you notice the first time we did this and she had all of those gaps, her number was much smaller than it is now. It's taking her a lot more ones cubes or centimeter cubes. Centimeter is the unit of measurement that we're talking about today. So lots more centimeter cubes when they're actually lined up next to each other. That's because she wasn't really measuring all that space in between. okay? The first time she did it.
Okay, so that is my measurement. Let's bring those all in again. Ready?
Ooh,
Ta-da!
that's fast.
How many centimeter cubes long is this pencil?
Okay, the other thing you need to make sure you do is count correctly. So whenever you're counting these, put your finger under there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Make sure you count them properly. If you line them up properly, endpoint to endpoint, no gaps, you get the right number of cubes there, but then you count it wrong and write the wrong answer down, well, then you're going to get it marked wrong on your paper.
So go ahead and count those. How many centimeters long is this pencil? If you said 12, you got it. So the unit of measure.
Actually, while 12 is the right number, I would not accept that as the complete right answer just yet, because we're talking about measurement. You also tell me what unit you're using. So I don't know if you just write 12, I don't know if you mean like 12 miles, 12 feet, 12 pencils, 12 paper clips. What are you talking about? So you have, beside of your answer, when you get it, beside of your number, you have to tell me what you're measuring with. And since we're measuring with centimeters, you would write centimeters beside of it. So it's 12 centimeters is your answer. Now, I don't want to have to make you write out the word centimeter all the time. So there's actually an abbreviation, a shortcut way for us to write centimeters, and it's cm. So if you see cm, that's centimeters. Okay, so she should have written 12 cm, and we would read that as 12 centimeters.
Measure that we used for this one was centimeter cubes, and it took 12 centimeter cubes to measure the length of this pencil. Good job, friends. Let's take a look at this crayon. Okay, we're going to measure this crayon now. So there's 1 centimeter cube.
No gaps.
2,
You hear me say that all the time in measurement.
4. Okay, you can count along. Okay, so here's one that's a little bit.
All right. Now you notice this last centimeter cube over here goes a little past the crayon, but I still needed it because if I didn't have it, then I would cut off the tip. So she's going to talk about what to do whenever we see that happen, and that will happen all the time. Things don't line up exactly perfect all the time, okay? So let's see how to work it.
Tricky though. When I look at this, I say, oh, my end point is like right here. If I were to make like an imaginary line to go down, it's like right around there. So it's not quite this whole centimeter cube. So let's count these real quick. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And
a
this
little
is
bit
9,
more.
but it doesn't really go all the way to 9. So it's kind of in between the 8 and the 9. So if I were really talking about the length of this one, using my centimeter cubes, I would say that it's almost 9 centimeter cubes long. It's more than 8 1/2 of the cubes, but it's not quite 9. So I can say that this crayon is about 9 centimeter cubes long. So when you use that word about, that means you're talking about it's pretty close.
All right, so here's the rule that I follow on this. If your object that you are measuring gets at least halfway on this cube, and we can kind of see, look at the tip of that crayon, it's about halfway, then I'm going to use the next number. So here I would say it's about 9 centimeters, okay? If it were less than halfway, maybe it only came just a very, very tiny bit of that one, then I wouldn't really use that number. I would say about 8 centimeters. Okay, so the halfway mark is going to be very important to know. So if you make it halfway, we're going to round up and say about to the biggest number. But if we didn't make it halfway, we're going to round down and say the number that's smaller. Okay, so we'll practice that. You'll see examples of that. So this one is about 9 centimeters because we used at least half of that cube. So we're going to count him, but I can't say it's 9 centimeters because it's not really exactly 9 centimeters. It's about 9 centimeters.
Close. It's not an exact measurement, but it's pretty close. When you're using different units of measure, such as a centimeter cube, it might not be exactly the whole length of one of those centimeter cubes when you get to the very end, just like this example. So that's where you would have to add in about in front of the actual number that you represent. And
She's yawning again. She did that in some of the other videos.
excuse me, friends. That's where you have to use about in the actual number that you come up with. So this is about 9 centimeters. I can't say that it's 9 centimeter cubes long because it's not quite to that 9. But when I use that about, that tells me somebody that it's going to be just right under and pretty close to that 9 centimeter cubes. Okay, friends. Awesome job. Today was a piece of cake. Have fun measuring.
That's the end of the lesson today. Let me stop sharing. Come back to just me. So now you are ready to do your Zern Mission 2, Lesson 1. Make sure that you have your Zern binder and that you are doing all parts of that lesson, including the pages that are in that binder. And then it probably ends with an exit ticket, just as practice to make sure you can do it. I probably need to take a look at those binders. I don't know if I have one here. I need to take a look at that and see if you have everything that you need to do that, or if you're going to need some cubes. I'm not sure. If for some reason you need a centimeter cube and you don't have one, remember what I said you could use as an estimate of a centimeter? That's right, your pinky. So you can use the width, how wide it is of your pinky could be a good way to estimate if for some reason you need to do that. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow for the next lesson. Adios.